There we go. Running a tiny bit behind this evening. Changed our regular meeting date from Monday to Tuesday. And of course, anytime there's a change, life gets weird. Hi. My name is Gary. I am... oh gosh. Microsoft, stop trying to sell me things. I'm not buying. My name's Gary. This is harmonicaband.com. The lighting's a little weird because I have a white shirt on. And I had a white shirt on because of stuff. And so I apologize. You're not looking at me anyway. So the big thing we're going to work on tonight is running through a pretty long list of songs. I'm going to see how many we can get through before about 7:45, 7:50, and then we're cutting it because then I got a ukulele class at 8. And so be patient with me as I'm trying to figure out timing on all this stuff. And I do talk a lot when we're doing these things. And so you gotta know I'm going to go as fast as I can and still talk a lot. Vic is in. Hey, Vic, good to see you. Let's see. Tonight we're going to get back to playing some scales. We are doing You Are My Sunshine as our warm-up. That's one of those songs you should probably just memorize for diatonic. It's great. And Brahms Lullaby for diatonic, which is another great song. And I did update that middle of last year, almost a year ago already, with a little bit better MP3 on it. And then we'll try some of our chromatic scales. We'll get back into those. One of my favorite songs ever, Come Josephine in My Flying Machine. And then if we have time left, we'll take another run at By the Light of the Silvery Moon and I'll Fly Away. By the way, I listened to the ukulele orchestra last night. They're playing our version of By the Light of the Silvery Moon. They sounded really good. But importantly, they're not playing it at full speed either. So we should not feel too sad that we're playing it quite a bit slower than written. All right. Here we go. Let's see here. Sorry, that probably sounded really loud in your house. Where am I going next? All right, so let's go take a look at... Grab your diatonic notes in C, and that's our scales. Now, that page there is super useful for lots of different things. When you start playing harmonica on a C harmonica diatonic, you're like, I don't know, I'm just playing a bunch of notes. But it does, and I think what I remember most is that the layout seems really stupid. Like, why are these this way? Until you start to sit down and actually look at the notes and see what they are. Blow is either C, E, or G always, and then draw can be a whole number of things. And that's why when you hear people playing the blues, they're doing a lot of draws because there's a lot of choices that you have as you draw on this. And then they'll call playing a C harmonica in second position or third position, and that results in a lot of cool chord sounds. Here we're a little more traditional. We're trying to get best melody out, and then we're going to use backing tracks to make it sound good, and that will create better musicianship in us. And so we're focused in on the blows, right? And so that means that the C harmonica, we're going to treat it like a C harmonica. Right below those notes there is a C major scale, and we're going to just do that one tonight. Okay, a couple of musical thoughts. On the far left hand, you'll see the treble clef, and you'll see an 8 above that. And that means that the notes you're playing on your harmonica are actually an octave higher than is notated here. So if you go to a piano and you blow middle C, you're going to find that note is actually an octave up for the same note. And so it's we do write it on treble clef, but we use the raised octave treble clef to let people know more accurately, mostly to let computers know more accurately which notes we're really playing. Then, if you look at your tablature here, 4 minus 4 5 minus 5 6 minus 6 7, it makes this nice going up and coming back down, and it's worth memorizing. Okay, it's worth memorizing that. The best part about standard notation when you can play only one note at a time is you can really see what your music's going to do. notice on this scale, everything's a quarter note except for the last note, which is a half note. So you're going to hold that one twice as long. And when you get to the end, we're going to repeat. Sorry. Don't put a dried apricot down your throat 10 seconds before the broadcast. Okay. I needed something a little bit sweet. Now, the repeats are very basic. You're going to go play to the end. You're going to hit that repeat, and you're going to go back up to the front where there's the forward repeat. You play a second time, 2 times through. Okay? Let's see how you do. Harmonicas in proper playing position. You want to make sure to have your hands cupped around it like this so that when we get to that long note at the end, you can give it a little bit of a wah-wah. All right, from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4. Always make the last one even longer, right? That's a good way to warm up your harmonica. It only warms up the middle section, but hopefully that's where you're spending most of your time anyway. And just get your voice and your face in the right position and all of that. Beautiful. So we will try to do that each time we get together to play that so that you get where it's just part of what you do. Next, You Are My Sunshine. All right. I used to play this one driving around town. I would leave a harmonica in the car. You get to a stoplight, and your job is to see if you can knock out You Are My Sunshine before the light changes. And what happens is you no longer care. You're always kind of mad when it turns green. All right. Musical thing here is we're going to play down to 16, come back up to the top, play down to the bottom. There's not first and second repeat here. My only note on this page says when I get to measure 17, I'm going to lay in a low chord. So that's blowing. That gives you that nice, deep, kind of big sound. Because if you hit the high ones, they sound kind of cool too. But this song feels more like a low chord. So that's your repeats. And then the song is 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. Okay, so we count in from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Your first note's a rest. If you're playing with somebody else, they're going to hit a chord first, and then you're going to come in. All right. Hey, Robin, good to see you. All right, from the top, You Are My Sunshine. Remember, pay attention to the rests, and when you get to a long note, which in this case are half notes and whole notes, give this a little thing. Also, you do have a tied note at the end of measure 12 into 13, so that note is worth 3 beats. It's one solid note for 3 beats. I always tell people when you are playing longer notes, you want to count in your head. Literally count. Don't just count on your brain to sense when it's time to change, because you'll come in too early if you do that, almost certainly. From the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, rest. So make yourself a note at the end and play it through a bunch of times. Decide, does a low chord sound cool? Does a high chord? Middle chord? With C chord, you can blow it anywhere along a diatonic harmonica, anywhere, and you're going to get a C chord. A lot of times I'll do a single note just to give that a little punch at the end there. But in this case, I think a low chord sounds pretty good. You guys are going to decide which you like the best. Okay, now, that sounds really good. Memorize that song. Seriously, memorize it. You might as well just play it every day. It's a great warm-up song, and it's a great song, period, and so why not? All right, now, the next great song we're going to play is Brahms' Lullaby, so go grab that. Brahms' Lullaby. One of my favorite songs ever. In fact, I was back working at it again this week because I'm cleaning up some stuff for the guitar group, and as I was doing that, I was like, I wonder what other lullabies are out there. And I already have some on the ukulele site, but not on the guitar site. And so I was looking around, and in lots of different languages, lullabies are pretty popular. And in classical guitar, there are 2 or 3 that are particularly famous. So we'll probably end up adding to our lullaby collection over time. So, of course, when it's a lullaby, you want to play it slow and beautiful and try to get the best tones out. You're always trying to get the best tones out, so that's a silly thing to say. But even more so in a lullaby, you want the baby to go to sleep. And so I think this is a good test for you. Offer to go to anybody's house you know that has a baby and say, can I play harmonica, and see if they fall asleep? They're not going to, but it would be fun to try. The music here is we start on measure 0, we count in 2, and then we have a pickup note, la la, and then it comes in at beat 1 of number 1. We're going to play all the way down to 16. That repeat sends us back up to number 1. You can play all the way down a second time. When we get to 16, we skip 16 and play 17. And slurs on this one, if you can do it, and sometimes they're easy and sometimes they're not, but when you're paying attention to the standard notation, so let's say you look at measure 2 and you have a 6 5 6. Now I always teach you guys, hey, play a tongue in front of each note, 2 2 2 2, like that, or on your draws even 2 2 2 2. It's hard to demonstrate that, but you're making a sound with your tongue between every single note. That way the old note stops, and the new note starts. We do that except on slurs, and that's when you see on the sheet music, you'll see a little swoosh, and in this case in measure 2, you're going to play that E note going to a G note. Don't tongue in that situation. So you will tongue the 5 but not the 6. Same thing at measure 4. You will tongue the -6 but not the following 6. And same thing with the next 2 notes. You will tongue before -4, but you will not tongue as you go into blow 5. And so what that does is mimic your human voice. Lullaby and good night with roses be died. And so that's what you're trying to do by not tonguing the notes. And of course, when you're newer, you're staring at the tablature and paying no attention whatsoever to the standard notation. But the standard notation is super helpful, and so you want to get where your eyes are checking both. In all the instruments I teach, you got to spend some time reading more than one line at a time, because there's different types of information there to be used. So harmonica is no different. You want to look at the tab to know what you're supposed to do next physically, but you want to look at the standard notation to tell you what you're doing emotionally. Okay? All right. Let's see what happens here. Blow 5, 2-beat count in. Not fast. This is set to play at 120, but that's way too fast. 1 2. Last notes are always a little longer, a little more wah-wah, just a little bit more like, now I'm done. You should be asleep by now, baby. It's never asleep, but that's the theory. My nieces today are turning, I don't know, 23 or something, some crazy number. When they were little girls, getting them to go to sleep was impossible, and then getting them to wake up from sleeping was impossible. I remember one time trying to wake up my one niece. I'm actually physically shaking her, and she's not waking up, and I'm like, I think she's broken. Not having ever been a parent, it was a little bit distressing. All right. All right. Both of those diatonic songs are amazing. They're really, really good. Everybody knows both of those songs. And you can do it with this, like, right, $40. And I think the main thing you can be working on with diatonic, just kind of get your playing to that next level, is really be thinking about voicing these notes as if you are singing them. It's pretty easy to blow these notes and draw these notes and have notes come out of your machine, but what you're really looking for is a vocal feeling to it, that you're actually singing with the harmonica. That's part where you're really listening, trying to make your notes start here, kind of swell and go back down, this type of thing. Lullaby and good night, right? So you're really trying to think about, if I was singing this song, what would that sound like? And hopefully making it something people are really excited to listen to. Sunset alarm. The other thing too is, and I talk about it each week just so to keep your mind in the game a little bit, I have a low F harmonica, and you can tell because I don't know if you can see this. It says LF on the end, low F. And you play the same exact tablature with this, and you're going to get much mellower, much darker tones to it, and it's really quite beautiful. And so think about, as you're on your harmonica journey, you're not just going to end up with one harmonica or even two with the chromatic, but you're going to want to get harmonicas that are diatonic but lower, right? So in other words, the C harmonica is what we teach on, what you learn on. But then down the road, you want to start lowering the pitch of that just a little bit, because that can get a little shrill in those upper notes. And low F is probably the lowest you want to go from a this is a reasonable sound coming out of my harmonica perspective. All right, K-Moss. She's gone to the dark side. She's purchased a harmonica. So you need two in your cart. You need that one. Now on the website harmonicaband.com, all of you know there's a link over on the left side, and it says what to buy. Okay, and I want you to buy. I'd like for you to buy a Hohner Special 20 in the key of C. Okay. I've been playing this since all through the pandemic. So what is this now? 5 years? This one. No others. And it's been great. And when I'm starting to feel it being like a little fussy, I just go put it in water and rinse it off a little bit and let it dry. And it's been great. Like, I mean, seriously, it's silly. And they sound great. They're easy to play. They are $40, a little odd bit. And then I need you to buy a one of these. Now, there's a zillion types of these, but this is the one. Again, I've been using it. This wasn't the first one in the pandemic, but it was the second one in the pandemic. It's called a Forerunner Chromatic, and it has 12 holes on it, so you can see 1 through 12. Get the lighting just right. Okay, it's a 12-hole harmonica, and has the button. Okay, the button means everything, and these are not expensive. I think these are $50, and they are. I guess I shouldn't say it that way. $50 seems pretty inexpensive for a musical instrument. $50 is still not chump change, right? But again, I've been playing this one for 4 years, I think, and just this. I own other chromatic harmonicas that are much fancier, Hohner, right, and Suzuki, and all these other fancy ones. And this is the one that it's just always out and laying around. I play it. I'm perfectly happy with the sound overall. If it's not sounding great, it's usually my fault, not the harmonica's fault. And so for less than $100, you can get both of the harmonicas you need to do everything on our website. Get really good at playing harmonica, and then start looking at your other options, because there's a million kinds of harmonicas out there. And if you go around the internet, you'll see guys playing bass harmonicas, and they'll take these ones, and they'll have a low version of it and a high version of it, and these come in different keys. I did have to buy, this one's in the key of C, of course, but I did, for a thing that I did with the ukulele orchestra, I had to buy a D one, because the key that the song was in was just super complicated, and I was pushing the button like mad on this C, and it was just a lot of work, and I thought, why don't I just get one in D, and that solves the problem. So I did get a second one of these to play one song, and then and now it's sitting in the box. Let's see. We're going to do chromatic scales. Now, I want you to pull this up, because this is one of the things on our website that is cool. Like, this is outstanding that we have this. It takes, as you can imagine, filling out the paperwork on scales when you're writing these out is super boring. You're going to go and you think, well, then just copy it on the next tape and then change the key. But it doesn't really work like that, because you've got to there's a lot of things that come into play here. And so what we have here is actually something that's really helpful from a music theory perspective. If you could learn to play all of your major scales, not from the tabs on these, but directly from the sheet music, you would be ridiculously good. I don't do that primarily because we have tabs, and what the heck, that's a zillion times easier. But if I was getting very serious about performing on chromatic harmonica and really going up to that next level where I can just play from regular people's sheet music without tablature, I'd want to spend a little bit of time really memorizing this stuff. I think that it's mostly a waste of time to memorize them unless you're very serious about chromatic harmonica. And then it seems like a no-brainer, like, yep, I'm going to do this. If you're wanting to play lots of sheet music from just sheet music you find laying around, you gotta know your sharps and your flats, and this piece of paper here really helps dial that in. The other thing about this paper is I didn't just put the key signature over there. So for example, C major, no sharps or flats, very easy to look at. C sharp major, all sharps, well, really technically 8 sharps, right? Everything has a sharp in front of it. Now, the smart thing to do, and you'll see this in regular sheet music, is they put all those sharps in the key signature. The problem with that is, with harmonica, is it sort of disguises, when you're learning harmonica, it disguises when and how you go about pushing the button. And this is a way to teach you that much more directly. And so the scales, well, scales are wildly overrated in their importance in the musical world. They are there to kind of get you thinking about how music really works and what you're going to need to know to be successful in it. That doesn't mean you have to know anything. All you really need to know is how to read the tab, and you'll be fine. But what I want you to do is, I want to start sort of pushing you a tiny bit, just a little bit, saying, all right, learn where these real notes are on your real harmonica, and then try playing something without tabs and see how it goes. And you'll see pretty quickly how solid your memorization is. So I do love these scales, and you're not going to find these other places for whatever reason. I have been threatening to do the minor scales for years. The problem is that there's 15 of these, and then with the minor scales, there's actually 45 of those. And at some point, you just want to kill yourself with the making sure every sharp and flat is correct. And so it may be a while. I might do harmonic ones just so that you can at least have them. and then you would adjust them for natural and melodic. But we'll see. I don't know if I'll get it done anytime soon. I kind of want to. Kimo says get 2 to start with. I saw the website. Yes, on the website I think it's pretty clear. The reason you want both, diatonic is definitely the way to learn on. It's definitely a million times easier to play and really fun to play because you can start to work on bending notes and that. This one, the problem with it is it doesn't have all the notes. This one has all the notes, and so it is a little bit harder to play, and you want to kind of get your skills on diatonic before switching to this. Once you have switched to this, then you kind of don't need diatonic anymore because you can play all of those diatonic songs on this one as well. All right, C major scale. We're going to do scale number 1. Again, you'll see that it goes all the way across. The last note's a half note, so make sure that's twice as long. Then do the repeat and go a second time through. What I suggest is, as you're doing this, to try to think about the note you're playing. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and so on. Try to think about it. You're going to actually be reading 1, -1, 2, -2, -3, and your brain will start to melt a little bit. So maybe don't do everything at once. The other one, for those of you with singing background, do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and then it repeats. Okay, so you're going to do 2 scales, 2 octaves up, and then 2 octaves down. Okay. Robin says, I have a low F, a low C, and a low D, and she likes them a lot. Yeah, heck yeah. They are the low diatonic instruments. They just sound nicer. And do you have one in preference, Robin, with a low F? If you had to take one to a desert island, would it be the low F, the low C, or the low D? And that's the question I always wonder about. I love my low F. It is a tiny bit too low on number 1, I think, but I don't hardly ever play number 1 on a diatonic harmonica, unless I'm pretending to be a blues player, and I almost never do that because I don't know, that kind of music doesn't mean much to me. Anyway, we'll play this thing, and then we'll see if Robin has an opinion on which of the 3 are her favorite. All right, let's give it a try. We're going to start on 1. We're going to go all the way up to number 8, and then we're going to come all the way back. Okay? From the top, 2 times through. And again, with chromatic, it's very hard to get your sound chamber in here, but do it as best you can. Okay? You're not going to have to press the button on this one, so you should be able to get this, and then on that long note, give it a little bit of a vibrato to make it sound nice. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. You may notice when you're going up, you use the whole 4 twice, and when you're coming down, you only use it once. When you're arranging on harmonica, chromatic, you'll also run into this very exact problem. 4 and 5, when you blow them, will have the same note in them. So should you use the 4 or the 5? Well, it kind of depends. If you're going up and you're already on 4, it makes sense to play the 4 a second time, and then play the draw 5 and move on to 6. So that going up, you hit the 4 first. Makes sense to play those 2 notes here. Coming down, just the opposite. You get to the 5. You could play 5 or 4, but in this case, since you're already on the 5, you want to replay the 5 and then move on to the 4. So in other words, you don't move unless you have to. That's a sort of a pretty common thought process. Don't move unless you have to, and then move the least amount possible. I have found in lots of songs where I'm tabbing them out, and my friend Diane does a lot of tabbing of songs as well. And very often she'll choose 4 and I'll choose 5, and then we kind of have this conversation about why she chose it and I chose the other one. And that happens it also happens up here at 8 and 9 on this harmonica. So in this case, think about when you're arranging a song. If you're already in a hole and you don't have to switch holes to make the note you need, then you don't. So the less motion is better. Hopefully that went well. Hopefully I got every note clean and beautiful, and I had a few itsy bitsy squeaks along there. I was kind of proud of myself. Okay, so I'm going to mark number 1 off that we've done it. Next week we will play the C sharp. Okay, and C sharp is a crazy key. Nobody plays in C sharp except pianists who want to prove that they're the best. But C sharp, everything is sharp. So oddly, for us, same scale, just hold the button down. So it's kind of ridiculous. Where it starts to get much more interesting, look at D flat. Some of them are flat, some of them are normal, and you're going to be pushing the button like crazy. And if you listen to them on C sharp and D flat, sound exactly the same on a piano. But there's very different musical skills involved. A C sharp key, everything's flat, or I'm sorry, everything's sharp, whereas D flat major, you only 5 of the notes are flats. And so you're like, well, why wouldn't you just always play in C sharp because it's so easy? Well, that depends on the instrument that you're on. Most of the time, rather than playing in C sharp, they're going to arrange the song in D flat. On piano, now that's not true for wind instruments, because wind instruments are very different feeling, and so it's important you know that there are 2 keys that look and sound exactly the same on a piano, but read on the paper very differently, and you would actually use them for different activities. Again, kind of high level thinking on scales there. Not really important for you if you're just getting a song, writing out the tablature underneath it, and then playing, whatever it happens to be, blowing in the wind or whatever song you happen to want to be playing. Then that kind of thinking is probably less necessary. But in terms of just thinking about music, I want you to know everything. So, all right, so next week we'll do the C sharp. And now let's go take a look at Come Josephine and My Flying Machine. If you haven't hung around me for a while, this will be a new song to you. Come Josephine and My Flying Machine is one of these Tin Pan Alley, is early Tin Pan Alley, 1910. It's so silly and it's so cute. He's asking her to go for a flight. And what I want to point out here, well, one, airplanes were new, right? So that was kind of cool. Much higher likelihood you were going to die in this activity. So probably, Josephine, don't go flying his flying machine. Not that great of an idea. But what we're really looking at here is we have 2 chromatic lines. Low, chromatic in C low, and chromatic in C high. So what I want you to do is I want you to play the low one first. Okay, you and I will play the low one first. Then when you get to measure 32, we're going to bebop back to the number 1, and we're going to switch, hopefully without a pause, to playing on the high notes. Okay, so the first time you'll start on 3, and the second time you're going to start on 7. Okay, now usually I like to switch you around. Like I like you to play low and me to play high. But since we're just getting back into the harmonica world and getting ourselves, pulling up all the old material, seeing what's good about it, what's bad about it, fixing what's bad about it, celebrating what's great about it, I want us to play together so you'll know if you're sounding the same as me. And then always, your question is, all right, we're using a chromatic harmonica. Pretty good chance, not always, but 90% chance we're going to have to push the button, right, at some point. Gary wouldn't have put it in this unless in a chromatic unless there's a button push. And there is. Okay, so you're going along, measure 11, blah. Okay, now notice here it's an A sharp. Okay, and it's in a chord of a G7, and so there's this debate: should this actually be a B flat or an A sharp? And I think in this case, right, I think in lots of cases you might notate it as B flat, but for harmonica players, it's so much easier to think in sharps. I'm going to blow this note, but I'm just going to raise it up, right? So you'll see me a lot of times putting in a sharp where a flat might follow more musical traditions, but in this case A sharp makes a lot of sense. Then oddly you go to measure 20 and there's a flat. The second note in there is a flat. It's an A flat, which is a G sharp, and I don't think I have a really solid reason to tell you why I went with one over the other, but notice that you're blowing out of this in the same hole and you're going to draw 3 and then blow a button 3, and I think it's going to feel more like you're flatting the note than sharping a different note, and so that's why that flat ended up there. Might be a little musically confusing for the very well versed, but there are no official rules in this world. Third possibility, if you look at measure 24, same note, just now it's flat, right? And so what's happening there, I could have made that a G sharp there as well, and it would have been the same. You'd play it exactly the same on here. But what we're really looking at is, hey, this is going to feel like it's dipping down, so the flat feels like it makes more sense. Probably not 100% music theory class approved, but I think you get the idea. Our tendency is to want to sharp things because we push this button, we kind of want to sharpen. When I go back through and update this sheet music, I know I will sit and stare at that for a while and decide if I made a good choice there or not. I mean, I got 2 flats and 1 sharp in the same piece. That might be confusing. Maybe we'll make them all sharps or make them all flats, or maybe not. Okay, so again, as you're doing your own arrangements, you're sitting down with a piece of sheet music and your tool from the website and writing underneath there what you think the best attack strategies are for each of those notes on your tablature, and hopefully you're doing that sooner rather than later. Like I like the D. Oh, okay. Robin's like, I was like, what? Robin may be she may be on a bit of a delay. The low D is her favorite. Okay, interesting, right? So it gives you guys something else to think about. She's got an F, a low C, and a low D, and probably low D is maybe her favorite. Okay. Now, what was I thinking? What was my next very fascinating thought? Oh, sooner rather than later, go to your bookshelf and hopefully you have a book of songs, right? Like Elvis Presley songs or hot hits of the 80s or whatever it is. Find a song in there, grab your sheet off of the website to tab out Chromatic, and then tab it out. And then play it and see how you did. And if it goes well, send me a note, take photos of it, send them over to me. And if it's a cool song, I'll try to get it up on the website. I've been trying to get Vic's Scotland the Brave done, and life's getting a little weird down here, so I haven't quite got it finished. But Vic's been doing this a long time, and so her tabs are really good. And so I go through and I basically just copy exactly what she's telling me she did, and it always works. The reason I want you to do it sooner rather than later is that starts to get you into thinking about the notes. How are you going to handle them? Come, Josephine, in my flying machine. You see that melody is so nice, and you're like, okay, that's going to make a good song anywhere. This is going to be one I end up singing in the shower, so that's going to work really well on any instrument that I play. But it's going to for sure work here. You want harmonica songs to have good melodic motion to them, and this one does. And then it's sort of fun to try to tab the whole thing out without trying to play it, and then go back and play the song on your harmonica and see if it worked. And I've done lots of times where I've tabbed everything out and then forgot that we were in G and all of the Fs were supposed to be sharp. So then I got to go through and fix all the Fs. I've done that more than one time, so it's sad, but it happens. All right, we're going to play this twice through. Remember, you're going to go down to 32. And then you're going to come back to 1. The second time through, you're going to skip 30, 31, and 32. So what you do is you grab your yellow highlighter, you put it at the front of measure 30, because that's where you're supposed to think, or at the end of 29, either of those. So that says, hey, I got to remember that to think, if it's the second time through, I don't want to play 30, 31, and 32. I need to jump to 33. And then I have started putting on all of the sheet music. At the end of 32, I write 2 number whatever, right? And in this case, it's 2 number 1, because I have this tendency to always think I'm going to go to number 1 when very often you don't go to number 1. And so just having a little note there is helpful, like, oh yeah, you really are going to number 1 in this case. But in many cases, it'll be number 5 or number 13 or number 27, and your tendency to look over at number 1 is a waste of time, right? So a little note helps me there. I think that's about it from the sheet music perspective. If you know how to play ukulele, I'm giving you a full tough uke arrangement there. If you know how to play guitar, the melody is there. But really with guitarists, if you have a guitarist around, have them play the chords and you play the melody. That's the trick with guitar. Guitar is voiced lower than your harmonica, so you're going to stand out really well, and it's kind of fun. They strum C, 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 C. No big deal for them, and you're just creating this really cool piece of music together. Let's see, Robin says, I play along with some of my uke groups a lot, so I switch around depending on what key we are in. Yeah, so there's a perfect example. Robin's playing in her uke group with harmonica, right? And she's by far the most loud person in the, when I did my thing with the ukulele orchestra, there's a whole bunch of them, right? And we had, I think there were 10 or 12 of us playing in this small group, and me with a harmonica, and I was clearly much louder than all of them together. It's a nice loud instrument, and so it's kind of, I play a lot of mostly ukulele and then quite a bit of guitar, and then I get this thing out and I'm like, okay, now finally somebody can hear me, which is good and bad. If you're playing well, it's great. If you're playing poorly, then it's misery for everybody. All right, let me get my foot pedal here correct, because we're going to have to turn the page. All right, and then we're going to have to wrap it up. So, and we're not going to get to By the Light of Silver Moon or I'll Fly Away. I'm talking a lot tonight. I'll try to talk a little less next week. Okay, so from the beginning, 2 times through, play low the first time, play high the second time. 1, 2, 3. To the top. Love that song so much. You get to end on a 10-9. And you'll notice, I forgot to mention it, at measure 33, that second note, goodbye. The notes say goodbye, right? But you'll see the fermata right above that, above good, and then you see the high E note, and then a little upside down smiley face with a single eyeball type thing, the eyeball looking at you. That means make that note extra long, okay? Goodbye. And that's a really good place to get as much vibrato as you can. And then what will happen is goodbye, and then the ukulele group's going to go C chord, and it's going to be a miraculous moment. So hopefully you had fun with those guys. I'm sorry we got to quit after I'm shooting for 45 each time. Tonight we got to 50, and we didn't get to By the Light of the Silvery Moon or I'll Fly Away. Both of those are quite a bit harder than the pieces that we played tonight, but we got back into the official system correctly tonight, and so plan on every Tuesday night for the rest of your life, I think. Getting together, let's play some harmonica. Maybe you'll get one really good one day, maybe you won't, but it's still fun, and it's definitely an instrument that's inexpensive enough to share with other people, and kind of makes you the star when you get together with other musicians. So Vic, Robin, Kamos, and there's a couple other people hanging out, I can tell. Thank you guys for being here. If you're watching the replay, thank you very much. HarmonicaBand.com is where all of the music is at. Tell your friends, and I will see you next Tuesday night for harmonica. In about 10 minutes I'll start the ukulele class, and so I'll see some of you there, or not. And have a great evening. Peace.